There is a book that has existed for over 600 years, and no one has ever truly read it. Not a single scholar, not the most advanced cryptographers, not even modern artificial intelligence has been able to fully understand what's written inside. And that's where the contradiction begins, because this is not a fragment, not a damaged artifact, not a lost language with partial clues. It's a complete book, page after page, filled with structured text, illustrations, repetition, consistency. It looks readable, it behaves like language, and yet it refuses to be understood. So the question becomes unavoidable. How can something look so real and still be completely inaccessible? At first glance, the manuscript doesn't feel impossible. It looks old, carefully written, almost elegant in its construction. The pages are filled with flowing script, repeating symbols, and diagrams that suggest meaning just beneath the surface. But then, something doesn't make sense, because every attempt to decode it collapses. Linguists find patterns, but no translation. Cryptographers find structure, but no key. Even AI systems trained on thousands of languages fail to produce a coherent interpretation. It's not random, and that's what makes it worse, because randomness would be easier to dismiss. This is something else entirely, something that behaves like meaning without ever revealing it. The story officially begins in 1912, when a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich discovered the manuscript hidden among a collection of ancient texts. It wasn't labeled as extraordinary at the time. It wasn't locked away or protected as something dangerous or valuable. It was simply there, waiting. And that's where everything shifts. Because if this book is as complex and unique as it appears, why was it hidden in such an unremarkable way? Why wasn't it already famous, already studied, already understood? The deeper you look, the less this feels like a discovery and more like something that was never meant to be found. Carbon dating would later reveal something critical. The parchment itself dates back to the early 15th century, somewhere between 1400 and 1430. That means the manuscript is real, not a modern hoax, not an elaborate forgery created centuries later. The materials are authentic, the ink is consistent with the period, and the aging matches historical expectations. But that only makes the problem worse, because if this book was created in medieval Europe, it should fit somewhere within known history. It should connect to known languages, known sciences, known traditions. And yet, it doesn't. It exists within time, but not within understanding. And then there's the writing itself. The script doesn't match any known alphabet. It's not Latin, not Greek, not Arabic, not any recognized system of symbols. But here's the part that changes everything. The text follows patterns. Words repeat with statistical consistency. Sentence structures appear stable. Frequency analysis suggests linguistic behavior. This is not random noise. It's organized, intentional, almost as if it's saying something very specific. And yet, no one can translate even a single sentence with certainty. That shouldn't be possible. A real language without a key can be difficult, but not completely impenetrable. So what kind of system produces structure without meaning? The illustrations make things even more unstable. Pages are filled with plants that don't exist, or at least don't match any known species. Their shapes feel familiar, almost believable, but always slightly wrong, as if they belong to a version of reality that almost aligns with ours, but not quite. And that's when the pattern breaks, because alongside these plants are diagrams that resemble astronomical charts, but with constellations that don't correspond to the night sky. There are also human figures, mostly women, interacting with strange systems of tubes, pools, and structures that feel biological, yet mechanical at the same time. At first, researchers tried to organize the manuscript into sections, and strangely, it cooperates. There appears to be a botanical section, an astronomical section, a biological one, and even what looks like pharmacological content. The structure suggests intention. Whoever created this book wasn't just writing randomly, they were categorizing knowledge. But that raises a new problem, because organized knowledge implies purpose. It implies communication. It implies that someone, somewhere, was supposed to understand this. And yet, for over 6 centuries, no one has. So either the intended reader is missing, or the method of understanding is fundamentally different from anything we recognize. This creates a paradox that researchers still struggle to resolve. The manuscript is too complex to be meaningless, but too meaningless to be useful. It sits in a space that doesn't make sense, because if it's a hoax, it's an incredibly elaborate one, requiring immense effort with no clear reward. And if it's a real knowledge, then it has failed its purpose entirely. That contradiction sits at the center of the mystery, quietly destabilizing every theory that tries to explain it, because either scenario feels incomplete, either explanation leaves something unexplained, and that's where the investigation begins to fracture. Over the years, some of the most skilled cryptographers in history have attempted to break the code. During World War II, experts who specialized in decoding enemy communications were given access to the manuscript. These were individuals trained to recognize hidden patterns, to dismantle complex encryption systems under pressure, and they failed completely. Later, modern linguists applied advanced statistical models. They also failed. And more recently, artificial intelligence systems trained on vast datasets of human language attempted to analyze the text. Still, no definitive breakthrough. And that raises a dangerous question. What if the problem isn't the code, but the assumption that it is a code at all? One of the earliest theories suggested that the manuscript is a form of advanced cryptography, a hidden language encoded using a system far ahead of its time, something designed to conceal knowledge from those without the key. But then something doesn't add up, because medieval cryptographic systems, while sophisticated for their era, were not capable of producing something this resistant to analysis. This would require a level of abstraction and consistency that doesn't align with what we know about that period. So either someone possessed knowledge far beyond their time, or we're misinterpreting what we're looking at entirely. Another theory claims the manuscript is an elaborate fraud, a carefully constructed illusion designed to deceive wealthy buyers into believing they were purchasing something rare and mysterious. But that theory collapses under its own weight, because the effort required to produce this book, hundreds of pages, consistent patterns, detailed illustrations, far exceeds what would be necessary for a simple scam. And there's no clear evidence that Voynich himself profited significantly from it. So why would someone invest so much time and precision into creating something that offers no clear return, unless the purpose wasn't deception, but something else entirely? Some researchers propose that the manuscript represents a lost language, a system of communication from a culture that no longer exists, leaving behind no references, no translations, no connections to known history. And that idea is unsettling, because it suggests that entire systems of knowledge can disappear without a trace. But then something breaks again, because even isolated languages share structural similarities with others. They evolve, they borrow, they leave patterns. The Voynich script resists all of that. It doesn't behave like a natural linguistic evolution. It behaves like something constructed, but not artificially in a simple sense. Then there are the more extreme theories. The idea that the manuscript contains forbidden knowledge, hidden deliberately to protect it from misuse, that it represents alchemical processes, unknown medical practices, or even philosophical systems meant only for a select few. And while this explanation feels dramatic, it still doesn't solve the core issue, because even hidden knowledge must be accessible to someone. It must have a method of retrieval. Otherwise, it ceases to function as knowledge at all. So if this was meant to be hidden, then the question becomes, hidden from whom and accessible to who? And then there's the theory that most people hesitate to consider seriously, the possibility that the manuscript is not entirely human in its origin, not necessarily extraterrestrial in a literal sense, but something that operates outside the framework of human cognition. a system of information that doesn't map onto the way we process language. And that's where everything changes, because if the structure of the manuscript is fundamentally incompatible with human understanding, then no amount of analysis will ever decode it, not because it's too complex, but because it was never meant to be understood in the way we expect. Even the internal patterns of the text raise questions that don't resolve. Words repeat in unusual ways. Certain symbols cluster together with strange consistency, while others appear only in specific context. It almost feels like grammar, but with rules that shift just enough to prevent full comprehension, like a language that is constantly adjusting itself, staying just out of reach. And that creates a strange psychological effect, because the more you look at it, the more it feels like you're about to understand it, like meaning is just one step away, but that step never comes. This leads into something deeper, the psychological impact of the manuscript itself. It creates the illusion of comprehension. Your brain tries to recognize patterns, to assign meaning, to connect symbols to ideas, and for a moment it almost works, but then it collapses again and again. And that loop keeps the mystery alive, because it's not just a puzzle, it's an experience, one that subtly destabilizes your confidence in your own perception. Because if something looks meaningful, behaves meaningfully, but isn't, then what exactly are we relying on when we interpret anything? So why hasn't it been decoded? The obvious answer is that we lack the key, that somewhere, some piece of context is missing. A translation, a reference, a parallel text that would unlock everything. But what if that assumption is flawed? What if the idea of a key doesn't apply here? Because that would mean we're not just missing information, we're applying the wrong framework entirely. And that's when the investigation stops being about the manuscript and starts becoming about us. Science has managed to explain certain aspects: the age of the parchment, the composition of the ink, the physical construction of the book. These are known, verified, stable. But the meaning, the actual content, remains completely inaccessible. It's like having a perfectly preserved machine, understanding every component, but having no idea what it's supposed to do. And that gap between structure and function is where the mystery lives, because everything about the manuscript suggests purpose except the one thing that would confirm it. And what remains unexplained is almost everything that actually matters. The language, the illustrations, the intent behind its creation, the identity of its author. These are not small details. These are the core elements that define what the manuscript is, and yet they remain out of reach, which raises a deeper question. Is the manuscript incomplete in our understanding, or is our method of understanding incomplete for the manuscript? Because maybe the real problem is not that the manuscript is indecipherable. Maybe it's that we're trying to decipher it in the wrong way. That's when everything shifts again. Because if this isn't a language in the traditional sense, then translation becomes irrelevant. If it's not encoding information the way we expect, then decoding becomes impossible. And suddenly, the entire approach collapses. All the tools, all the theories, all the attempts, they were aimed at something that might not exist. At that point, the question changes. It's no longer what does the manuscript say, but what is the manuscript? Is it a form of communication or something else entirely? A system of thoughts, a symbolic construct, a cognitive artifact designed not to transmit meaning, but to generate it. And if that's the case, then understanding it might not be about reading it, but experiencing it, interacting with it in a way that doesn't rely on translation. But even that idea introduces a new layer of uncertainty, because if meaning is not fixed within the manuscript but emerges through interaction, then different observers might derive different interpretations. And that breaks one of the fundamental assumptions of knowledge, that it can be shared consistently, that it can be transmitted without distortion. So what happens when a piece of information refuses to behave that way? This is where the investigation begins to turn inward, because the more we analyze the manuscript, the more it reveals limitations in our own systems of interpretation, our reliance on patterns, on translation, on familiar structures. We assume that meaning must follow certain rules, that it must be stable, consistent, and accessible, but the Voynich Manuscript challenges all of that. It suggests that meaning might exist outside those boundaries, and that's not a comfortable idea. So maybe the manuscript isn't broken, maybe it's functioning exactly as intended, not as a text to be read, but as a boundary, a demonstration of the limits of comprehension. And that possibility is unsettling, because it implies that there are things we can perceive but never truly understand, that existence itself might contain structures that look meaningful, feel meaningful, but remain permanently out of reach. And if that's true, then the manuscript stops being an object of study. It becomes a mirror, reflecting back the assumptions we bring into it, the frameworks we rely on, the limitations we rarely question, because every failed attempt to decode it doesn't just reveal something about the manuscript, it reveals something about us. So when we ask why no one has been able to read it, we might be asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not about inability, maybe it's about incompatibility between the way we interpret reality and the way this artifact exists within it, and that gap may never close. Because in the end, the Voynich Manuscript doesn't just resist understanding, it reshapes the idea of what understanding even means. And once that shift happens, the mystery doesn't feel like something waiting to be solved anymore. It feels like something exposing a flaw in the way we solve things. And that leaves us with a final, uncomfortable possibility: that the manuscript isn't the mystery, that it's not the anomaly, that it's not the thing that doesn't make sense, but rather it's showing us something else that doesn't make sense, something much closer, something we've been using this entire time without ever questioning it.